Well, let's get some analysis on this from Osama Nazzal, who's a Palestinian affairs analyst, joining us live from Jenin in the occupied West Bank. Osama, really good to have you with us. How significant do you think these potential sanctions could be, given that the battalion's already been moved out of the West Bank? Is it more about the symbolism?
Yeah. If it were the opening chapter for sanctions on the whole Israeli military establishment and the Israeli occupation entity, that would be commended by the Palestinian people and the pro-justice activists around the world. But if the United States administration aim is to personalize and individualize these terrorism acts committed by the Israeli army and all the battalions of the Israeli army, not the one that they are talking about, I think this is not helpful for solving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We saw how during the Security Council meeting days ago, the Americans used the veto against the Palestinian bid for full membership at the United Nations. Today, they are talking about sanctions against an Israeli battalion. I think this is contradictory, conflicting American policy, implying that it is to address internal electoral issues, but not the core of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
It's a start, though, isn't it?
Again?
It's a start, though, isn't it? You were saying that you'd rather they were introducing sanctions against the whole army, but it is a start.
We wish that it is a start, and what is significant that it is against a battalion involved in crimes before the 7th of October, because if there is investigation into the crimes committed by the Israeli army these days, they will find out that almost all the Israeli army and all the Israeli military officials are involved in murder crimes and genocidal crimes against the Palestinians, whether in Gaza or in the West Bank, as your reporter mentioned, what happened in North Shemesh refugee camp and how Israeli forces killed Palestinians, executed Palestinians in their houses, and executed Palestinian paramedics providing medical aid for injured people. So this is not an arbitrary conduct by the Israeli occupation army. It is well systematic and well planned by the Israeli military officials and by the Israeli government. And we don't want to forget that the Israeli Minister of Home Security, Beni Gvir, armed about 100,000 Israeli settlers who serve as Israeli soldiers now in the occupied West Bank.
Well, actually, I wanted to talk to you about the settlers as well, because there have been some sanctions announced by the EU and the US against settlers. How much of an impact do you think that will have on at least limiting the violence there?
The problem, if you visit the occupied Palestinian territories, you will realize how the problem is complicated, because the West Bank now is divided into tens of cantons. And at the entrance of each canton, there is a gate guarded by the Israeli occupation army, by the official military establishment, in order to provide support for the Israeli settlers who are unleashed to attack the Palestinian villages and the Palestinian agricultural communities that are close to the Israeli illegal and illegitimate colonial settlements. So when we look at the broader picture of the Palestinian situation, we see that this is a policy by the Israeli government, but implemented by the army and by the settlers, because today the settlers constitute a big military force in the occupied West Bank, well trained and well armed by the Israeli Minister of Home Security, Beni Gvir.
Really good to get your thoughts. Thank you so much, Osama. Osama Nazzal, there, a Palestinian affairs analyst, joining us from the occupied West Bank.